This episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast is driven by Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. Cornerstone is the world's most comprehensive online gun dog training resource, with over 160 instructional videos including everything that you need to take a 7-week-old puppy to a finished gun dog. Visit cornerstonegunDogAcademy.com to sign up for their free preview module and begin your training journey today. Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, the most advanced gun dog training resource on the web. You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast, episode 117. This week on the show, Dan and I are back together for the first time in a while. We got an interview with some guys out from the Beretta A400 Xtreme Torture Tour, and we also got a brand new segment that we're going to debut for you this week. All right, welcome to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, episode 117, brought to you by Gunner Kennels. Engineered for your dog, designed for travel, and built for your peace of mind, the G1 Kennel has set a new industry standard and put Gunner Kennels in a category all its own. Gunner Kennels was started to protect your pet, and it continues to be at the center of everything that they do. They're dedicated to building the best and safest pet travel crate on the market, because man's best friend deserves man's best kennel. Check out their G1 series of kennels and accessories at gunnerkennels.com. All right, welcome to the show this week. I'm your host, Josh Palm, and we are your on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. Check us out at hpoutdoors.com. Check us out on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can head over to iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere that you can find quality podcast content. You can find our show. If you're new to the show, welcome. We're getting rolling here on 2019. Got a lot of new stuff coming down the pipe. If you've been around for a while, we appreciate your support and continue support in 2019. Joining me this week, we've been separated for the last couple weeks, but we're excited to be back together this week. It's my co-host, Dan Harushka. Dan, what's up, man?
Dude, it's good to hear your voice and the excitement, and I also want to let you know that a giraffe can go longer without water than a camel can, which is kind of seems unfair because a giraffe is larger than a camel, but at the same time, that's pretty impressive. I should have figured out how long that time was.
You would not assume that a giraffe could go longer than a camel. That seems counterintuitive.
It seems like
interesting.
It seems like the camel is kind of the gold standard there, but
you would think, yeah.
Okay. So good to be back.
This week we got an awesome episode lined up. We've had the last couple of weeks we've been doing interviews kind of from the field, so to speak. We've had, you were out at Falco where you were able to interview with those guys, as well as Field and Clay Hudnall. And then I recently had the opportunity to participate in the Beretta A400 Xtreme Plus Torture Tour up on the Maryland Eastern Shore. So was able to go up there and spend some time with some quality folks hunting sea ducks and putting the A400 Xtreme Plus through its paces, which is cool. So we'll be able to share an interview this week from that trip where we sit down with Brad Heidel and Sam Soholt. And pretty cool stuff for 2019. We got a brand new segment that we're going to debut this week, which is our Eukanuba Gun Dog Tip of the Week. We've got Barton Ramsey with Cornerstone Gun Dog Academies back with us, providing you tips on gun dog training. And this week we're going to talk a little bit about picking out the perfect puppy. So Barton's going to give us some tips and pointers on that. So really excited to introduce that new segment to the show. Before we go much further down the road, I do want to take just a second to thank 737 Duck and Goose Calls, original design, select grade components, and superior sound. 737 takes exceptional pride in producing the finest quality and best built premium calls on the market today. They're made in America and offered direct to customers only through their website. Shipping in the U.S. is always free, and international orders are also now accepted online. 20-day money-back guarantee and a lifetime warranty accompanies every duck call purchased. 737 Duck Calls lead the flock. And Dunn Sporting Goods. Dunn's a family-owned and operated business with 2 locations, Peabody, Missouri, and Marion, Illinois. They have over 60 years dedicated to providing the outdoorsmen with the best deals on hunting and fishing gear. Check out their selection at shopduns.com, as well as follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and be able to keep up with them for weekly specials and giveaways. Also, they've got a 10% discount code for the listeners of our show, so use HPO to save 10%, and there are a few restrictions on that, but for the most part, you can save 10% on almost everything you get it done, so very cool stuff. All right, Dan, what other than your nice little giraffe camel nugget, what else has been going on, man?
Nothing. Kind of just getting back in the regular swing of things. We got a Delta meeting tonight, so our banquet is coming up the 16th of February. My first time actually on the committee, so kind of excited for all that to go down and selling tickets if anyone local still wants to go. A couple decoy packages left and whatnot. So, that's about it, man. We got late season goose that is in now, and I will be getting on some of them here shortly and trying out some new boss loads on them. So pretty pumped about that. And pretty pumped to hear about your time over on the short, because it's funny because it's been a week or two now and we really haven't talked about it, kind of saving it for the episode. And I'm excited to hear about the whole thing. You guys absolutely crushed them.
Yeah, it was a cool opportunity, and you and I have not had a chance to talk much here with, you traveling, me traveling, the holidays, my wife having a baby, all of these things that have kind of kept us juggling a lot. So I do kind of feel like this is the first week where we're sort of back in the saddle, so to speak, and kind of getting our bearings about us. We do have obviously some changes to the show for 2019 that we're working out. Obviously, the show is proud to be driven by Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy here for 2019. We've got the new HPOWP tip of the week that's going to be coming not every week, but I believe we're looking at every other week, and we're going to be trying to get a new gun dog tip. That was something that was very, very well received when we did that in the past with Barton, and we're super excited to have HPOWP on board supporting that segment. So we will have those coming to you every couple weeks, every other week, hopefully. And we're going to continue to do some different things and try to continue to innovate. There's a few more things that you and I are working on that are kind of outside of the podcast that we're super fired up about. So a lot of great stuff coming on into 2019. Sort of feel like we're drinking from the proverbial fire hose right now with just trying to keep up with everything. And here in Virginia today, we got 8 inches of snow like overnight, which is, for anyone that's in this area in Northern Virginia, it's like a snow apocalypse. Like people are on lockdown. So I'm sure my kid will be off school for like 2 or 3 days, just lots going on. So I'm happy to kind of be able to sneak down to the basement and do a little recording, get a little away time from all the chaos upstairs. But what do you think, Dan? You want to jump right into it and go ahead and get this HPOWP tip of the week going out and see how everyone likes it? The first one for 2019?
For sure. Right.
All right, let's do it.
Hey guys, this is Barton Ramsey from Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. I'm here today with your retriever training tip of the episode, brought to you by HPOWP. Today I want to talk about how to pick the right puppy. And this is assuming that you have done the research on picking the right litter, because I believe that is the most important part when it comes to picking the right puppy, is choosing a litter that best fits what you want to do in the future with your gun dog. So for us, it would be picking a litter if it's, let's just say, Labrador Retrievers, which is probably the most popular breed out there, definitely the most popular breed in the U.S. You'll want to pick a litter that has working parents, possibly parents that you can see, or you can see videos of them working, who are health tested, who are obviously in good health, and who have some sort of pedigree that recognizes field accomplishment toward whatever end goal it is that you have with your puppy. So if it's a dog you're wanting to be, a duck hunting dog, you want to see some sort of field trial, hunt test, working test, some type of accomplishment in the pedigree to show these dogs have a lineage of being able to work. When it comes to actually choosing the puppy that you want out of the litter, I tell people all the time, just grab a pup, make sure it's the puppy that it's a male or a female, or it's yellow or black, and go home. There are a lot of different old wives' tales, different tricks people do, which one will do this and do that, and most of the time what I have found is sit down, play with a litter for just a minute. One of the puppies is going to gravitate toward you. You're going to gravitate toward that puppy. Pick that one up. Make sure it is indeed what you're going after, male, female, like we said, and move forward with it. You can spend a lot of time, but what we don't usually see is puppies wind up. They don't wind up being exactly what they are at 8 weeks. So the smallest pup is not necessarily going to be the smallest full-grown dog, and the most, bold one is not necessarily going to be the boldest, most driven dog. And so just pick one that comes to you after you've done all your due diligence on researching a litter, snag that puppy, make sure they're all in good health, and move forward. And we hopefully use Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy to train the pup into the type of gun dog that you're looking for. Thank you guys for joining us on the quick tip of this episode.
All right. Thank you again to Barton Ramsey of Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, as well as Eukanuba for supporting that segment. And hopefully you guys enjoyed that and will enjoy the segments to come here in 2019. Again, every other week, we're looking to have those tips and techniques. Again, also, if you're a member of our Facebook group, Barton is in that group as well, and he always is fielding questions. You can head over to his group as well. Southern Oak Kennel Society, lots of people talking gun dog and training and things like that. And of course, what we believe is to be the best training resource on the market today, Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. If you have not checked that out, definitely sign up for that free preview module and see what it's all about, and see if that's something that can help you in your dog training.
Yeah, I think that was a great tip too. A lot of people will see a gun dog working and then they just run out and buy anyone that has a litter available. And I think it's really important to do a little bit of research if you're really trying to get that dog that does everything that you want or you saw working, do your due diligence on the parents and check into the breeder and make sure you're getting what you want. So no doubt. Great tip there. And it's funny when you do go to like puppy pickup day, I was down there and people, they do believe that there's some kind of way to figure out what dog is for you, and like you said, kind of just find one that gravitates and go with it. Don't think too much about it. You did the research and it's all there. Right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too because I hate to put it in this terms, but essentially it's true. Your gun dog and your retriever is another piece of your gear when you're in the field, so to speak. Right. So you do tons of research before you buy a shotgun. You probably research decoys. You research your camo. You do research on all of these things. If you were going out to buy a boat, you would research, and see what people think and, look into what's been successful and things like that. When you go to select a gun dog, it should be no different. That background research is way more important than anything that you're going to learn at puppy pickout time when you're spending there, time with them. And you can't predict what that dog's going to be, and he's the runt of the litter, so he'll be a little bit smaller, so he'll fit into my boat a little better. He'll probably be the biggest one of the litter kind of deal. That actually ran in when I picked my dog out, my golden retriever, a couple years ago. We picked him because he was the laziest looking, he totally did like the rope-a-dope, right? He just kind of laid in the corner, let us think that he was chill and mellow. And here we are 9 years later, and he has not slowed down one bit. I mean, he is still super fired up. So can't really try to predict it. Just kind of go with your gut and, hope lean on that background research more than anything.
The old rope-a-dope. They'll get you.
He got me for sure. All right, Dan, let's shift gears here a little bit and get ready to talk about this interview that I did with Brad Heidel and Sam Soholt up on the Eastern Shore, Maryland. And this was just a cool opportunity that came across for us to be able to go up and be a part of this. And Beretta did a tour of 4 different stops around the country, putting the A400 Xtreme Plus through this, torture tour of basically hunting in a variety of different environments and, putting the gun through its paces and kind of see how it performed. So we got the opportunity to come up on the final leg of the year here on the Eastern Shore, Maryland, hunting sea ducks. And it's just such a cool deal because they bring in people from all over the country. Brad is, works with Delta Waterfowl. Sam Soholt is all over the internet, protecting public lands, Yeti ambassador, things like that, just all over the place. He was out in Oklahoma with you hunting. So, it's cool to have, guys like him and, Sierra Langbell was there. So it's you got a lot of people coming from all over the place with different experiences. Some have never hunted sea ducks before. Cosmo Geneva came down he was with Outdoor Life. He was more of a turkey turkey deer hunting bird type guy. So waterfowl was kind of new for him, but it was neat to bring all the different experiences together. And oddly enough, I was probably the one that had the most experience hunting that style that we were doing that day. So it was a really cool deal. We had a great great hunt. I mean, we shot a ton of shells. I mean, we were shooting a lot because, as anyone that's ever hunted sea ducks knows, they're one of, if not the toughest bird going. You shoot and you shoot and you shoot until they're dead, and rarely are you stoning them with one shot. Although it did happen, a lot of times there was follow up shots. You know, half the time we were trying to double tap them out of the air, you know, if we could, just because they were so tough. And once they start diving, it's very, very challenging to recover. So it was a cool hunt for me. Got to meet some really, some new friends, some interesting folks, learn about other people and how they kind of chase waterfowl around the country and sort of get their perception of how we do it here on the East Coast. Because, you know, I think I talk about this in the interview. I think because it's been a couple weeks now since we did this, but, you know, rarely do you find the Atlantic Flyway being featured in a waterfowl focused effort, if that makes sense. You know, most of the time you're looking Arkansas, Louisiana, Kansas, Oklahoma, you know, like prairie pothole regions, Canada, things like that. Rarely do you see people coming to the Atlantic Flyway. And if they do, it's typically the Eastern Shore of Maryland, which was, you know, is steeped in waterfowl tradition and, you know, goes back a long ways and feels, you know, from a guy that lives right outside DC, when I go to the Eastern Shore, it feels like I've gone back in time. I feel like I'm in a simpler time, slower pace of life, gunning, watermen, all of that kind of stuff is way of life out there. So I love it. I love getting back there. I know you feel the same way about it when you've been there. So it was really cool to share that with folks that have been, you know, that are from other parts of the country, Midwest, things like that have never seen that type of style of gunning and the waterfowl heritage and tradition that goes on the Eastern Shore.
Yeah, I knew when you were finally on your way, you're shooting me texts. I love the Eastern Shore. I'm like, oh, he must be back over there. So you cross that bridge and, you know, and it does take you back. And then once you get out there and see all the birds working and it's just a cool area.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and roll into that interview and let you guys hear our conversations from out on the shores. I'm joined by Brad Heidel and Sam Soholt. All right, today we're coming from the Eastern Shore of Maryland out here with Beretta for the final stop of the A400 Xtreme Plus Torture Tour. Got a couple of the guys on the hunt sitting with me. We got Brad Heidel and Sam Soholt. Gentlemen, how y'all doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, we're doing great.
Awesome, man.
We've already had an awesome day out here.
No doubt.
Just really happy to be part of this whole thing.
Yeah, no question. It's really a cool deal how they bring people from all over the industry and all over the country to come out here. And I got to say, it's a little bit cool for me because being an East Coast guy, you don't see the East Coast featured in a lot of, waterfowl, obviously, but, you know, any kind of hunting, it's industry focused. You see a lot of that stuff in the Midwest where, you know, you're killing big whitetails, or out west killing, you know, big elk and things like that. So to have something like this going on in Maryland is really cool for us here locally. And, you know, Brad, you work with Delta Waterfowl, handling corporate partnerships and advertising sales. And Sam, you're Mr. Public Land, dude. You're out there fighting the good fight, and we're definitely going to get into that. But I got to ask you guys: have either of you hunted on the Eastern Shore here before?
No, I've never been out. I've actually never been to Maryland.
Okay.
So I've been out. It was one of the few states I have left in the country to go to, but have never hunted out here at all.
How about you, Brad?
Yeah, actually, I've had an opportunity. I hunted up in Maine, and we did a cool eider hunt out there.
Nice.
Probably 2 years ago, and then this would be my first time actually at the Eastern Shore here in Maryland. And I got to tell you, I grew up waterfowl, and I just love it. And to be able to come out here and hunt Chesapeake Bay, I mean, it's the most traditional waterfowling spot in this country.
Yep.
And to be able to come out here and hunt this bay is really cool. I need to shoot a bull canvasback.
That's right.
That's what I need to do.
Yeah, it's the one thing you read about in all the stories is hunting the Chesapeake for cans.
Yep. Today though, we put quite the beat down on the bufflehead though. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think we kind of went out this morning not really knowing what we were going to get into and not having a lot of idea of what we might have an opportunity to shoot. And I have to be honest with you, every time I've been to the Eastern Shore and hunted with a guide, I get the same kind of deal. Stale birds, you know, it's like, we don't got many ducks or we don't have many geese. And I get here and we're just covered up and we have a banger hunt. And, you know, we were shooting primarily buffleheads this morning, but it was a good time. And I think we had a lot of fun and a lot of action going on. And
I mean, maybe you could speak to this, Brad. Have you ever hunted where you're chartered out in like a 40-foot commercial fishing boat? Essentially, is what we were in.
No, but you take the 40-foot commercial fishing boat and you throw in there the pontoon that we were all sitting in all morning long. The pontoon blind out in the middle of the bay. That was a pretty neat deal. That was pretty spectacular. And no, I've never done that.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I think we had 5 guns, and then we had Matt and Aaron with Rockhouse out here with us in the blind. So we had quite a few people in there. And I think the first couple volleys, there was a little apprehensive to like, oh, I don't want to shoot over someone's head, or I don't want to ring somebody's ears. And then I think Aaron said, run it to the plug. So we did that the rest of the time, and we had a good time doing it. And I think we got Sam on the Xtreme range. Is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Had the Xtreme range choke in there, and that made a difference. That helped a lot. But
we just Sam was the official cripple killer.
That's right.
Yeah. There was not a lot of cripples getting away.
We just needed a little attitude adjustment right there after the start, and then everyone was into it, and we were.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those deals. We go out there and there's no wind. It's pretty warm for this time of year. I think a lot of places around the country are struggling to get on birds consistently, and a lot of guys are having a hard time. So you just one of those things where it's like, well, how's this going to turn out? We got a lot of guns here, a lot of people, a lot of things we're trying to accomplish today, and to have it work out was pretty cool. And it was funny because it was one of those hunts where I think everybody listening to this can relate, where you're in a boat with a bunch of guys, and it's like. 3-pack here, and everyone's heads on a swivel. What do you mean here? Like, we're shooting both sides.
Out front.
Yeah, right.
Out front.
Yeah, we're shooting both sides of the blind. Really cool. You can definitely check out a lot of the photos from today's hunt on Instagram that are out there right now. But how does what we did today compare to what you guys kind of see back home?
You want to start? You want me to start?
I can start. Well, back home, I'm in the Midwest, so I live in Wisconsin. And we do have some opportunities similar to that now. We didn't have them before, but right now there's a pretty good population of long-tailed ducks on Lake Michigan. So you're seeing a lot of people out on Lake Michigan out after long-tailed ducks in a similar fashion. Excuse me. A lot of people getting out in layout boats now with their tender boats and stuff, and putting out the lines of decoys and we're seeing some really good numbers of longtails, golden eyes, bluebills, redheads, and you'll get more of the bluebills and redheads in the Green Bay area, right in the Bay side. But you go over on the Lake Michigan side, and you will get the longtails, and you also every now and again you'll get a chance at some scoters out there as well. Cool. So it's pretty cool.
Let me ask you about like timing of the migration, because here on the East Coast, a lot of times, by the time we get the weather that's good enough to bring the birds down, a lot of guys' seasons are closed. Dan, who's co-host of the show, his season in Pennsylvania closes out, and then he sees cans and reds and all these things showing up. Mm-hmm. So in your neck of the woods, how early in the season are you seeing these kinds of birds showing up?
Of
course, it depends.
It's a caveat. It depends, but your better times of year are going to be, November.
Yeah.
And obviously, you mentioned the seasons being closed. We have the same issue back in Wisconsin. You can look at mallards, you can look at diver ducks, but the season closes. It's only a 60-day season, and so we're done the first part of December.
Yeah.
And we're still out hunting geese, and there's just piles of mallards coming in, but there's really nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the divers and things like that in Lake Michigan. There's I'm not going to call it global warming, but there certainly is some climate change going on. And I think that's, the migration is getting later and later every year. And birds aren't really pushing as far south, I don't think, as they have in the past either, because they don't need to go south.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They got food, they got water. Why travel?
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that, a lot of guys are questioning right now. And it's tough because regulations change, and certainly here in the Atlantic Flyway, we've got some pretty good changes coming down the pipe next year. And, you see guys see those changes, and then maybe where they hunt, they're still seeing birds and they can't understand it. But they don't, sometimes it's hard to sort of maintain that focus, is like, well, this isn't just for this particular area. This has to kind of cover everybody. So everyone, might not be seeing the ducks that they used to see because they're not getting down as far as they used to and things like that. But how about you, Sam? What kind of...
Yeah, so this is a completely new experience. The majority of my waterfowling time was spent in the Dakotas, growing up in South Dakota and then going to college in North Dakota. So it's all prairie pothole stuff, your quintessential mallard slough with the cattails.
Yeah.
Or, cornfields, dry field hunting, either bean fields or cornfields, but it was all that, just all on the Great Plains. And you're mainly chasing mallards. You'd shoot some teal, some gadwall, some widgeon, some, all the puddle ducks. Every once in a while you'd get into a good diver shoot. And, but, coming out here and going out on the big boat onto the Chesapeake Bay and then, seeing, all the long lines getting put out and all of that type of stuff that I've only ever seen in magazines or in videos or whatever. And then being able to be part of like that old waterfowling tradition that, has been here forever is just such a cool experience to do that out here.
Yeah, we talked about, getting up here, and if you're just a guy that comes here and wants to hunt, how it can be challenging here on the Eastern Shore. Because you're talking to our guide, he's like fourth generation, commercial fisherman and guide, and I know pretty much every guide that I've ever hunted with here is like third or fourth generation type. So it's it's almost like you take a step back in time when you come here. Especially for me, I literally drove through downtown Washington D.C. to get here, and it feels like I'm in a different world when I cross the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, which is really cool. And like you mentioned, Brad, that the Chesapeake Bay and the Eastern Shore is one of the historic spots, for waterfowling tradition. And it's cool because it's one of the few places that it's really worth your time to come to from the Midwest or from out West or somewhere that's not here to come hunt here and do it here. And we were talking about the body booting and stuff like that, just some of the unique things that you see up here. And
I was surprised at how rural it is.
Yeah.
And it's small town atmosphere, small town people. We went out for supper last night and sat down and started chatting with some gals and a guy at the end of the bar.
Yep.
And they were more than happy to put us in with some other guides that might be able to help us out later in the week, tell us places to go eat, just like you'd be at your own restaurant or saloon or bar or wherever at home.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's not as big city and East Coast as I expected it to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest differences for me, coming from hunting the plains to coming and hunting out here was just the hide situation. So
That's a good point.
Well,
That's a funny point.
So,
I forgot about this. Yeah.
Yeah. So, growing up in South Dakota, I'm used to, you're tucking into cattails or you're tucking into brush at the edge of a pond or you're, grassing in a ground blind or whatever, to the point where you're hidden or you're not shooting birds. And you have one little flock come in of mallards or whatever, and one of them flares, and then you're out moving decoys and shifting stuff and making sure everything's covered up, and you're having to do all these little things to make sure the birds finish right. And then out here, we're out on a pontoon that's kind of covered, but that blind hasn't been there, so it's not like the birds are used to it. Yeah. And the boat that's picking up the birds after we're shooting them is literally just driving around out, pretty close by.
Yep.
And we're all just standing up in the blind. It was I think it took me a little bit to, at first, like you said earlier, we're there's birds, and then we're all ducking down.
Yeah.
And then after about 2 or 3 volleys of that, we were all just oh, here comes a bird. And we're all just standing up ready.
Yeah.
Wait for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually even a little bit unique for me because some of the areas that I hunt, it's the same kind of deal. I mean, you need to be covered up.
Yeah.
And, today it just seemed like for whatever reason that was not a big concern of the ducks. Because, literally the guy would be behind us in the boat, again, 40-foot white boat.
Yep.
Picking up ducks. And he's just yeah, just don't shoot behind the blind. Just make sure you shoot out front. And I'm like, okay. I turn around and here three are coming in, and we're like, all right, So it was funny how they had lack of life safety concern. This morning for whatever reason,
and we could go out tomorrow and have a completely different experience.
Yeah.
We
could.
We could. I'm hoping it's about the same though.
Yeah. Well, I think tomorrow we're going to try, from what he said, to potentially try to target sea ducks a little more and get more on scoters and stuff. And
Cool.
we shot a handful of those today, and that's probably a duck that
That's a funky looking bird.
yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of those birds that, like, if you're going to shoot one, you got to thump it, because those are really, really tough birds. And I think we did the few that we had a good opportunity on today. We did pretty good with that. But
Well, the very first bird that came in this morning, is it a long-tailed duck? What do you call it?
It's a long-tailed duck. Yes.
Long-tailed duck.
Yeah.
It's not an old squaw.
Correct.
Okay, long-tailed duck.
Yes.
Anyway, that's
It
the
was
first.
at one point in time. It was no longer.
Gotcha. So anyway, a Drake long-tailed duck came in, and I shot it. Thought I made a good hit on it. Apparently, I just, it was like giving it a good punch.
Yeah.
And then it flew away like 5 minutes later. So
Yeah.
it's crazy how tough they are.
Well, I can tell you, when we were down here breasting out the birds, I'm pinching and tearing open buffle heads and just taking breasts out like nothing. And a couple of sea ducks that I pulled out, I mean, I had to like give it all I had to get them open. So I mean, you could tell.
Yeah.
It's easy to see why they can hold it a
They've
little.
got a little better armor.
Yeah, no doubt, no question.
Just the fat on them is so thick that get them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Take something to get through it.
yeah, no doubt.
They'll be delicious though.
Oh yeah, that's right.
One thing I did find interesting was that when we were talking last night, when we got into camp, we were getting all squared away. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're both left-handed shooters, right?
We are.
Correct.
And Sam, you said you don't shoot a left-handed gun.
No, I never have. I've never shot a left-handed shotgun.
So,
Nor have I.
okay, so maybe this is a thing. I mean, like, is it just you just don't know any different, or like if because some of the guns had the safety switched over and things like that. Was that a challenge for you guys, or did that feel natural, or?
So Brad, you've run it with the safety on the other side, correct? You've swapped your safety before?
Yeah, I actually shoot one of the Beretta A400s, not the new one, but I do shoot the older model. And I just simply, you can do it yourself. You can switch out that safety and just reverse it. So it's a piece of cake. What I couldn't do, because when I went to buy that particular gun, I was going to say, okay, I'm going to get myself a left-handed shotgun now.
Yep.
And I went to purchase one. I couldn't even load the thing because I've been doing it right-handed my entire life, and I'm 50 years old. It's too tough to swap it around, so I just said, forget it. I'm just going to swap the safety as I always have with my other guns. The cool thing though about like the Beretta that we're shooting and a lot of the other plastic type guns is that they now all come with those shim kits.
Yeah.
So you can shim your gun to the right or to the left. However you want to do it to set it up for you so it fits you right. And I've done that with my gun. I took it apart and shimmed it to the, for a left-handed shooter, etc. Put a little finger on there because I'm a taller guy.
Yep.
A little extension in the stock. And it all comes with the guns. So it makes it really easy for you to customize a gun all by yourself for your,
Yeah.
Yeah, and growing up, I shot a pump forever, and it was always a bottom eject. I shot a Browning BPS, so it didn't really matter either way.
Yeah.
And then it was just in the last few years that I started shooting a semi-auto, and never really had a problem with it. I just, I would every once in a while I'd shoot a semi-auto. I just never even thought of it because I didn't even know they made left-handed shotguns for the longest time.
Right.
But yeah, I've never picked one up. I honestly, I think it would be hard. I think I would be thrown off by the loading and everything, because rifles, it's all the same. It's always been right-handed.
Yeah, and a lot of guys, whether they're left-handed, it's like, oh, they've got a hand-me-down shotgun that they start with, or they get one used or something like that, and they could probably, they end up in the same boat. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I know one person that's a left-handed shooter that I know personally, and then it's like when you guys were both saying that last night, there's like 5 of us shooting guns, and they're like, we got any left-handers, and 2 hands go up. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what are the chances? That's wild. So that was pretty neat. Brad, talk a little bit about just your experience on the gun today, being that you shoot the older A400, and I'm not talking like. I'm not talking like forcing cones and crazy stuff like that. I'm just talking like as a hunter, having it in your hands, shouldering on birds today, how'd it feel compared, and what do you think were some of the nicer features that are different from what the older ones offer?
Yeah, There's a few things that I did notice that are different. I couldn't tell you on the forcing cone or anything like that. I could tell you I shot it really well.
Yeah.
I felt comfortable shooting, and I think I hit ducks with it. I know I hit ducks with it. That was neat. Some of the things that some people may view as cosmetic are actually very functional, and that's the enlarged bolt handle to rack the bolt back. And then you also have the enlarged release button as well. So, obviously it was warm today, so we didn't need to have gloves on, but I can see where that would be a real benefit to this particular shotgun, as well as any shotgun for that matter. However, even with gloves off, it was great being able to crank that thing back. We went through a lot of ammo today.
Yep.
And we were constantly throwing shells in that gun, and I don't think anybody had a malfunction today.
No.
At all. That's something. This was a 26-inch barrel. I'm usually shooting a 28-inch.
Yeah. I
didn't see a whole lot of difference in there. One thing I did notice though was I was able to get down on the shotgun a little bit more for two reasons. They've got the little cheek piece in the comb, which is soft, and that helps in the recoil end of the deal. But I also noticed the rib's a little higher as well. It's got a stepped rib on it.
Yep.
So I'm a taller guy, so it was a little easier for me to get down on that gun.
Same for me. Yep.
But one of the things that I think is the best thing about this particular shotgun is that kickoff system. I mean, personally, that kickoff system works like a dream. I know that they got 3 dampeners in the stock, two to absorb the first recoil, one to absorb the second recoil, and you can shoot that gun all day long. Mm-hmm. We're shooting some heavy waterfowl loads today, and you don't even notice it.
Yeah, it was pretty. At least by my, I felt like the recoil was pretty manageable, pretty light. Sam, how about you? What was your impressions of the gun? Just kind of handling it today.
So, my first time even putting hands on the gun was last night when we were putting them all together to get ready for this morning, and just in the house, just shouldering the gun a little bit, just to kind of feel how that was going to work. It's really comfortable to shoulder the gun, and that doesn't say everything, but when you have a gun that just, when you throw it to your shoulder for the first time and that sight line is all there, like you just know it's going to feel good. But to just follow up to what Brad said as far as the recoil system, because I had the extreme range choke in there, I ended up being the guy that was cleaning up a lot of the cripples or taking the third shot on a long bird. And
I don't think I'm overstating it when I say you probably shot like 3.5 boxes of shells.
I definitely went through 3 boxes. Absolutely. I went through a box in like 15 minutes.
You were the first one to re-up.
Oh yeah.
You were like, you better send it down.
I'm definitely not too proud to not say that. I was just.
Well, you were on the hot end there.
Run them to the plug, man.
Yeah, that end of the blind was hot.
Yeah.
So you.
Yeah, somebody had to do all the shooting.
That's right. It's a tough job.
But no, and normally after putting upwards of 75 rounds through a gun in a morning, like you're going to have a sore shoulder or a sore cheek or whatever, and I have nothing. Like I can't feel it at all. So that was, and just being able to stay on a bird the whole time, even after, as you're pulling the trigger, instead of recoil and then find it again, recoil and find it again, you can just shoot, if you need to walk it in a little bit.
Yeah. Which was really fun to see today. Because we're shooting on the water. Those birds were coming in low, and you could see that we were all behind.
Yeah. It's like, behind it, on.
Yeah. It was. I think it took a little bit of an adjustment period at first because they were coming in pretty close. At least some of them were, and they were flying. Most of them were right to left. Hard across. So it was almost like that. I think I let him enough. I'm still behind him. It's like, okay, I'm uncomfortably far ahead of this bird, and bam, it folds. It's like it was kind of that type of deal. So that's always fun.
You just don't know how fast they're going.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe for me, you're just used to, mallards coming in and floating over the decoys. And so you're just, point and shoot.
We had a couple of those. They were pink feet, though.
Right.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I'm used to, most of the stuff I shoot are big honkers, back flapping over, over decoys and stuff right in your face. So, that takes a little getting used to. And but we came around. I thought we did pretty good. We ended up with a 5-man limit there.
Yeah.
So
No, I think if you want to, if you ever want to try to improve your wing shooting, like a hunt like this, in a morning, putting that many rounds through a gun and learning how to lead birds, you can learn a lot in a day.
And this would be a tough hunt to come into cold. If you hadn't picked up the gun in a while, you're going to burn a lot of powder through the air for sure.
I think the Captain Wade was even surprised at how fast we finished out today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were done by like 8:30 ish. With the 5-man. So that was cool. It was probably. It was one of the for like an hour, it was like steady action. I mean, we were, circling, head on a swivel, kind of trying to figure out, when you say the birds are here, do you mean on the shore side or the boat side?
We had to get our communication down pretty good.
Yeah. So, and for the most part, most of the groups that we shot were small. So, it's not like we had big balls coming in where we had to worry about shooting lanes and stuff like that. It was, we could all pretty much just pepper like the 4 or 5 that were coming in and do work. So those are fun too. It makes it a little more manageable.
I'd say the biggest flock we had come in was maybe 10, 15?
Yeah, that's probably about right.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that's, and it's funny. I did the classic, like, screw up. I look and I see these birds coming, and they're a little higher off the water, and then I see something catch my eye, and there's like 3 in the decoys, like 10 yards in front of me, and then they just take off because I'm too worried about what's coming in. So, not my finest effort on that run, but So, let's talk a little bit about what you guys do, kind of, when we're not here hunting on the Eastern Shore. Doing this stuff. And Brad, we'll start with you, working with Delta Waterfowl. And we've had John Debney on the show a handful of times, and he's one of our favorite guests. We've had a lot of good talks with him about, obviously, what's happening here in the Atlantic Flyway and, keeping us up abreast on the Farm Bill and the efforts that are going into there.
Yep. You've probably had some talks with him about, obviously, the Eastern Mallards.
Yep.
And then you had the chat with John in reference to what Delta Waterfowl did just up in the Susquehanna Flats area?
I don't know if we spoke specifically about that, but go ahead and tell us about that.
That's really a cool part of what Delta Waterfowl does. I mean, we are the duck hunters organization, and if it's not going to benefit duck hunters, we are not going to do it as an organization. We want to make sure that we put more ducks over your decoys this fall and well into the future, and then to ensure that the hunting heritage. So hunting heritage is a big part of duck hunting. It's
no doubt.
Chesapeake Bay here, it's cool. So just north of here, you're probably familiar with a place called the Susquehanna Flats,
no doubt,
which has been a traditional waterfowl gunning location for, since day
back in
one
the market
here.
Days, yeah.
Yep. And they were doing some rezoning in that area, which was going to actually close down that area for waterfowl hunting.
Wow.
Because the way they were rezoning the city. And, we got a call from one of our local chapter leaders. I'm pretty sure he got in touch with John.
Yeah.
And then the organization rallied with that local chapter, and we were able to keep those Susquehanna Flats open to waterfowl hunting. Yeah. So that's a really small win for big picture, but that's a really huge win for waterfowl heritage. And it's a really huge win for the people who hunt in this Eastern Shore and hunt that Susquehanna Flats area, And then we're always looking to do, even larger wins. We worked really hard on getting a lot of those refuges open, which comes around to what Sam does and works on the public side. Access is a barrier to entry for new duck hunters and for keeping current duck hunters, interested in the sport. I mean, we got to have those public lands available to us. So getting those refuges open, we took a big step as an organization to try and make sure that happened, and overall it did. We have a lot of new public land open for waterfowl hunters. So that's really a big thing of what Delta Waterfowl does.
Yeah.
We do the research and we do the science. Everybody knows we're the science-based organization, and we still do that. But we fight for duck hunters.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know Virginia was one of the, there's still a handful of states that don't allow Sunday hunting, and Virginia was one of them that recently changed that law. And I know, that was an effort that Delta Waterfowl was involved in. And I'll tell you, I am the perfect example as to, hunter recruitment and why Sunday hunting is important, because my son's 7 years old. I'm trying to get him into waterfowl hunting, but in the same time, he plays soccer, he plays basketball, he plays baseball, and they're on Saturdays, every Saturday. All through the hunting season, we're doing something with his sports on Saturdays. So Sundays are our days to get out in the field and waterfowl hunt. And if we didn't have that opportunity, it'd be a really hard sell. It'd be a hard opportunity for me to get him out at all, let alone get him invested in it and want to do it, which fortunately enough, I've been successful in doing, and he's already torn up with it. So that's great. And I think that's one of the biggest concerns that I personally have about the changes in season here on the Eastern Shore. Because they're not only dropping the limits, but they're condensing the season time. So it's basically like a 30-day season or whatever. That's like 4 weekends to hunt, right. And 4 weekends goes by so quick. It's going to be really hard to get younger kids opportunities, and just even adults. Right? Life's busy. You can go a couple weeks and not have an opportunity to hunt because things happen. You got to work, whatever. And
sometimes weather gets in the way. Right. Migration gets, changes. 30 days, a lot can happen in 30 days, and you could have, you take Sunday out of it, you could have one good day.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're done.
And Brad, this is me just being curious about. I know some of the statistics on overall hunter numbers and how that's been changing, but in regards to just waterfowlers, and if you don't know the answer, that's fine. But what's happening to the waterfowler numbers? Like, is hunter engagement up, like as far as number of waterfowlers, or is it dropping?
Waterfowl hunting is no different than any other hunting out there right now. We are starting to lose numbers as far as bringing new people in. You've all heard it, the 3 R's: retention, reactivation, and recruitment. And it's important to do all three of those things. We want to keep the duck hunters that we have out there. It'd be nice to bring in some of the old duck hunters who have left the fold. That's going to be, I think, a bigger challenge. But we do have the opportunity to recruit new duck hunters, and that's something that we as an organization put a lot of time and effort and dollars into, as well as our chapter volunteers. Our chapters are doing first hunt programs. We've got the largest first hunt program in waterfowling in the country. We put roughly anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 people through. I think we're probably put 12,000 kids through our first hunt program last year. Don't quote me on that one. It's not my bailiwick at the office, but it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's great.
It's a pretty big deal, and we have to do more. If you look at it in our lifetime, we could see the loss of hunters not able to support our local Department of Natural Resources, our state Department of Natural Resources agencies, who are running on licenses, hunting and fishing licenses. That could go away, and they're going to have to find other sources because the hunters and fishermen aren't there, and the license sales aren't there.
Right.
That will happen in our lifetime if that does not change. That's a fact.
So, obviously, Sam, you're heavily involved in the protection of public lands and access and stuff. So, talk a little bit about some of the efforts that you've got going on. Obviously, most people will probably know about you and the bust that you had going on, and there's plenty of stuff going on out there, and we don't have to belabor that if you don't want to. But
no, I'll do like a high level overview of kind of what I've been up to.
Cool.
In case any of you listening, I'm sure there's a bunch of you listening that probably have no idea who I am, which is great. So I 2 years ago, I purchased a full-size school bus, ripped the guts out of it, and turned it into a mobile hunting cabin, basically.
RV.
It turned it into an RV.
It's an RV.
Yeah.
Legally, it's an RV.
Yeah, legally it's an RV. But I turned it into a rolling hunting cabin. But the whole purpose of the project was to use the vehicle both literally and figuratively as as an engine to raise awareness about public land transfer legislation and how important public lands are in this country. And so what better vehicle to do that than a bus? It's definitely a rolling billboard, gets a ton of attention, and I've been traveling for the last 2 years in it, I guess year and a half, but traveling in it, hunting chunks of public ground, fishing on public waters, and doing things like this podcast where we can, talk about the importance of public land, or producing film content for different people that have helped support the bus project to push that message, and get people fired up. And my goal with it was to stay pretty elevated, because there's a lot of rabbit holes you can go down with public land legislation, whether if you can dive down the Pittman-Robertson Act, wormhole and talk about that, or the Land and Water Conservation Fund, or the Farm Bill, or there's all of these different avenues that you can talk about that make up public lands as a whole, including our licenses, tags, taxes, all of those things. But federal duck stamp. But I just wanted to always talk about it at a very high level, so then people that might not know that there is a threat to public land will go, what is this guy talking about? And then they go out and do a little bit of research on their own, and at that point they're a little more invested, rather than me just spewing a bunch of information and them trying to retain it. But it's been fun to see, as I've gone along and kind of, the bus gets a little bit more recognition and traction. It's been fun to get messages from people be like, man, I had no idea what was happening, and listened to you on a podcast, went in, did a little more research, and then I joined the local chapter of Delta Waterfowl, or BHA, or whatever organization that they have an invested interest in, like in the things that they hunt. They get involved and they want to help, and they donate money, and they call their legislators and go vote and do these things that allow us to protect the things that we like to do for future generations.
So let me ask you a question, and Brad, you might be able to speak to this too, but we've got people that listen from all over the country. So it's always interesting, because it's like, I'll say something and they're like, that's completely wrong, because where I live, we, do it this way, or whatever. As far as public access, high level in general, here on the East Coast, like, where I live in Virginia, the closest public access is an hour drive. Where I grew up in Pennsylvania, the closest public access was like 2 minutes. It varies so much just on the East Coast. It's a completely different ballgame when you're talking out west, and ranchers and big chunks of land and BLM and all that stuff. In your optic, like how at the highest level, like how serious is the threat, across the board, and how does it vary slightly? As a waterfowler here in the Atlantic Flyway, what kind of things should I be concerned with, and do they align closely with the waterfowler or the mule deer hunter in Montana?
Right.
So it's unpacked there.
It's definitely a huge discrepancy from going from east to west, and I think because there's so much less public land in the eastern half of the United States, I think there's a lot of people that don't even realize the resource. And I think a lot of people don't realize that you own that land. Like, if you are a tax-paying citizen, you are part owner of all of that public land, because it may be managed by the state or by the feds, but we are the ones that are funding it all. And, I talked about this a lot early on, is even if you don't hunt public land in the eastern half of the United States, if you ever have a desire to go out west and hunt elk or hunt mule deer or do anything like that, like it's a big deal. And even if you don't have that desire, just protecting those wild places for future generations, and allowing people to have access to go do the things like that we like to do, and retaining people in the sport, those having access to those places makes all the difference. Because if all of that is locked up, as bad as it is to say, it's a lot of that ends up either getting leased up, or it's hard to knock on doors. And
and it's funny too, because you mentioned guys going out west. I know a lot of guys that they take a trip out to Colorado and archery hunt for elk, and I can't tell you how many Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation stickers I see in Northern Virginia. Just play. We don't have elk anywhere. Huntable elk real close by. So it's a fair point that you bring that up. But you talk about people not understanding the resource. Like where I live, if you said you can't ride your mountain bike there, or you can't ride your horses there, people would lose their freaking mind. Right. So it's interesting, because it seems like sometimes the hunting community is such a niche use of public land that it's at least on the East Coast, it feels like, like I said, if you said the mountain bikers couldn't go on there, it'd be a completely different fight than what, you say you can mountain bike there, but you can't deer or duck hunt there, right?
And I wrote an article recently, and I said in there, and I've said it a couple times, but it doesn't matter which public land user group you belong to, whether it be hunting or fishing or biking or hiking or camping or anything that you do on public land, that land is literally the common ground that we all share.
Yeah.
So we all have the same thing to lose if it goes away.
Yeah. What do you have similar public land issues out where you're at, Brad? Or how is public access?
We're going to be more along the lines of that. What you're talking about in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
We have boat ramps everywhere.
That's great.
There's a lot of really nice public access. You just have to get out there and you have to take advantage of it.
Right.
And you're not always going to find the ducks in this spot every single time. You have to go out and you have to do your work and you have to do your homework and you have to scout just like anything else and get out and do it. But we're blessed in the Midwest. Minnesota has some great public lands. Iowa does. North and South Dakota have great public lands.
Yeah.
Nothing like you have probably here on the East Coast, or you hear the stories of folks down in Texas. My gosh, I can hardly imagine. I just understand it's such a challenge to hunt public land in that state. We don't have that problem. We're blessed to have a lot of public land, and we talk about public land, and it's everyone's, and it's the cool thing is I love to turkey hunt in the spring, and we've got some great public land or some great private land that we're able to turkey hunt. But I put a feather in my cap when I go out on public land and get a late season gobbler in public land. That is a fun thing to do because that land's been hit, it's been hunted, which is that's what it's there for. But you get a wily old tom that's made it through the season. Yeah, it's pretty cool to put that feather in your cap and get those birds. But
now I think it's important that I always try to reiterate that I am not anti-private land at all. I just like, I grew up roaming around on little chunks of public here and there, and I can't imagine people, my kids and their kids and their kids not being able to do the same thing.
Yeah, no, it's a definite threat, and it's interesting for me because we have people in our Facebook group and things that hunt out west that have a completely different optic on the public ground situation. Right now when I hunt public ground, I'm air quoting here. I'm hunting military bases and things like that. So I mean it's public, but it's not like you don't just show up and hunt, right? So it's regimented. There's lotteries and things like that, and for us here locally, that they work out pretty good. It's well managed, it's well run, and it's a great access opportunity. So things like that, I'm so thankful that that the DoD allows them to do that. They allow us to come on military bases with shotguns and hunt. It's awesome, and if we didn't have that, a lot of guys would be out of luck. So it's same but different for you guys, right? It's the scale is different, but the opportunity and what it means is similar.
Yeah.
And,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
You bring up the lottery deal, and there's a lottery to hunt in these different blinds that you're able to go in. And I look at, my initial thought is coming from a place where I have no such thing. There's no such thing as lottery. You just go out and hunt ducks.
Yeah.
And I think about it, I'm like, well, you know what? That's not a bad deal possibly, because it really, I don't want to say it limits the access, but it can be more of a quality hunt.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which is, you can always find public land to hunt on, but it's not necessarily going to be a quality hunt because, there's going to be, you hear the stories of the folks down in Arkansas where there's, 400 boats lined up on a boat ranch. 400 is an exaggeration, but, you're probably talking 20, 30 boats and, the 5 o'clock horn rings and it's a boat ride.
Right.
Well, and that's one of the biggest complaints that I see on a regular basis from duck hunters is the public land experience and lack of etiquette and lack of common courtesy and, setting up close by and shooting swings that are, all of that kind of stuff. So the lottery does definitely help with that. Mm-hmm. And it is open to all, it's you still have an equal opportunity and, you might not get to hunt every day that you would like to, but you're still going to get better quality hunts.
Yes.
I definitely, certain situations, I think it's definitely a great system to have, and if they're run well, they can be good opportunities. So, I wanted to talk a little bit with you guys about. Actually, before I do that, Brad, I wanted you to speak for a minute for me. We have a variety of experience levels that listen to our show. There's folks that listen that have been hunting for 30 years, and there's people listening right now that have yet to have their first duck hunt, and they're just trying to figure out, how do I do this? And that's really one of the reasons why we started our show, because when I wanted to start waterfowl hunting, I didn't have anyone to tell me how to do it. I had to figure it out, and and I was like, man, there should be better resources out there. So that's one of the reasons why we started this show. As a new hunter, or maybe someone who's been hunting but is not involved in conservation or things like that, they know the Delta. You hear the names, the Delta Waterfowl, the Ducks Unlimited, the things like that. Talk a little bit about like the importance of the local chapters and what they mean, not only to like Delta high level, but also how that can benefit the areas locally that they work in, and why that is a worthwhile effort. Because a lot of times when guys hit me up and they say, hey, I'm moving from here to here, what do you recommend? I say, join your local Delta and DU chapters, meet like-minded hunters, do what you can to, assimilate in the community and things like that. But so those banquets and those events and those youth events, the money that's generated, all that kind of stuff, just talk about how that sort of feeds into the lifeblood of the organization.
Yeah. Delta Waterfowl could not be Delta Waterfowl without its local chapters. And when I speak about our local chapters, I speak of our volunteers. They're the lifeblood of the organization. These are the guys that are going out there at home at the local level, grassroots, getting it done. We can't do without them. They're awesome. What you can do is join a local chapter. We're always looking for new volunteers to help out, and that gives these guys an opportunity to maybe learn a new place or get involved in our first hunt or mentor hunt programs where, we're able to take out youth or young adults or even, adults themselves who want to get into waterfowl hunting. These first hunt programs and these mentor hunt programs that our local chapters put on every year are the great place to get those kids and young adults and adults involved in waterfowl hunting who've never done it before, or possibly you're new, like you said, you're new to the area. Great way to meet new people and to find out, what's the duck hunting like in this area? How do we do it? And you get to meet new buddies. Yeah, new duck hunting buddies, which is great. Kind of like we're doing here. We're all, we all come in as strangers and we're all going to leave as friends. It's similar to that chapter type feeling, and they work together for a common goal, and that's to put on a fundraiser at the end of the year. The really cool thing about the Delta Waterfowl organization is our chapters get to keep a large portion of those proceeds that they make at that local level and do local projects, whether that's putting up hen houses, whether that's putting wood duck boxes up, predator management, or first hunt / mentor hunt type opportunities. And that's a lot of what they do with those local funds. Not every organization allows those chapters at the local level to keep those dollars and to keep them home. So that also keeps the volunteers really engaged in the organization because, not all their money's going back to Bismarck, North Dakota, where we're still doing great things with that money, but they may not be seeing the great things that we're doing that at the local level. Keeping that money local allows them to do that. And it keeps them excited and engaged at the same time.
Particularly for those chapters that, I'm sure you have chapters all over the country, but like, let's be honest, if you're in a chapter down in Georgia, or North Carolina, or even, the prairie potholes are important. I get it, but I'm not shooting ducks that are coming from there for the most part, So it's like, it's awesome that the guys can say, we shoot primarily wood ducks here. If I can take some of that money and use it to build, boxes and help our situation here locally, that's cool. And it's a great opportunity. And, like you said, this hunt is a perfect example. I've never met either one of you guys. We've sat here for, 45 minutes or whatever, because we can speak the same language. We hunt and, you could walk into any chapter and do the same kind of thing, or go to any banquet and have the same kind of experience. So it's really a good opportunity. And I think it's one of the best ways, you can really increase your opportunities, particularly if you're going somewhere new, to meet like-minded hunters. I mean, last night, I think we all I think the only language that I don't speak that you guys do is apparently I'm the only one that doesn't like oysters among the group.
Wow.
So everyone starts crushing oysters, and I'm just like, I'll just sit here and drink water, I guess.
They were delicious.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we got to talk about on the Eastern Shore too. Is you're coming out here on a duck hunt, which is massive tradition in itself, but just the access to the fresh seafood.
Yeah.
Like while you're here,
We've taken advantage of it.
oh man, just so good.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
you wrestled with the decision last night.
I did.
It was a
I was
struggle.
struggling. Yeah. I didn't know if I wanted all crab or crab and something else.
But your rationale was sound. If they're stuffing everything with crab,
Right.
it must be really good.
And it was worth it. The crab was delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went with the flounder stuffed with crab, which
Yep.
was also.
I went with the blackened scallops.
That's right.
Were those good?
They were the bomb.
Yeah.
I'd have those again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you might have your opportunity.
You never know.
So on another note, Sam, I know being a photographer and spending a lot of time behind the camera, Dan and I like to take pictures and stuff like that, and I successfully converted Dan to Sony, and I quickly realized that you're shooting a Sony.
I am.
Have you always been a Sony guy? Are you a recent convert?
No, recent convert. I shot Canon. My first DSLR I got in 2012. And before that, I had a professional Canon video camera. So I've been shooting Canon since 2009, I guess. And before that, I had Canon handy cam. So I've been probably
Canon guy.
I was. I mean, through and through, I was.
I was as well before Sony.
Yeah. And then, just for what I do, I started doing a lot. I started in video. That's all I did.
Yeah.
And then I transitioned to almost all completely stills. And as far as being able to cross over and doing a lot more of both photo and video, Sony was just putting a lot more power into a smaller package. And for me, it made sense to make the switch.
Yeah.
It's lighter weight. There's, you got higher resolution images on the photography side. You get way more power on the video side in, a similar body.
Yep.
It's for what I do, doing that crossover, it definitely makes sense to go to Sony.
And what body are you running right now?
So I have the A7R3.
Okay. Yeah. Dan and I both run A7 threes.
Yep.
And we get a lot of questions about guys. Social media era, everybody wants to capture the moment and take quality photos, whether it's their dog's first retrieve or, their kid's first duck, or they're just out with their buddies. Like it's awesome. I love, seeing great quality photography. And they always ask, what should I go with? And Canon and Nikon or what everyone kind of thinks of when they come to mind. And I love mirrorless cameras for one main reason I love it, particularly for people starting out, is when you hold the camera to your face and you look at that screen, you're seeing what the picture is that you're going to capture.
Right.
So, as a new hunter or a new photographer or someone that's not super familiar, it takes a lot of that guesswork out, and you're not reading meters so much.
Exactly.
And it's like, if it looks too dark, lighten it up. So it takes a lot of that guesswork. So I always recommend, the Sony A600, 6300, 6500, that kind of series is a great starting point for folks. And even a lot of their, I don't want to call it a point and shoot because it's way more powerful than a point and shoot.
And I was going to say, if you're intimidated by, going out and getting a body where you have to switch lenses a bunch, or invest in more lenses.
Yeah.
That Sony RX100 is
Phenomenal
unbelievably
camera.
powerful. It's tiny, and you get a lot of the same tools that you get in a full professional body in a tiny package for the brand new one is whatever $1,200, but you can get the version 5 for around $800, and you're getting a lot of tools in a very small
Zeiss
package.
optics, very, very high level.
Great
stuff.
low. It's a f2.8.
Yep.
Or is it 1.8 on that 5? They switched anyway. If you're looking for something where it's going to be easy to run to get going and shoot quality images, for out in the field, it's going to be something you're definitely going to want to carry in your blind bag or in your pack all the time. That RX100 is hard to beat.
Yep, I would totally agree. Yeah. Well, I was glad to see a fellow Sony shooter in the amongst the mix, and I would definitely recommend that for a lot of guys looking to get into the camera game. We've kind of giving it a good run here. So I don't want to take up too much more of you guys' time. I know we're getting close to dinner time here and we're all hungry, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that you were out at Falco a week or so ago with Dan, and amongst other birds killed, you were able to harvest your first pintail, if I'm not mistaken.
First big bull sprig pintail.
All right.
Yeah. So growing up in South Dakota, when I was younger, there was always a pintail season, and it usually ended November 1st. So pintails and cans would close November 1st. And before that, you might shoot one or two early season, but none of them ever had a big sprig.
Right, yeah.
There were multiple occasions where we'd go out late season and break a hole in the ice on some small slough and put out the decoys, and we'd have a big, beautiful group of pintails come in, even to the point of having some sitting at like 15 yards on the ice at the edge of the decoys, just standing there, and couldn't shoot them. And so, I started duck hunting, legally, or, I'd go out when I was younger, but started shooting when I was 12.
Yeah.
And so 18 years of duck hunting, and finally killed my first big bull sprig pintail. And it was the first day of the hunt, the afternoon hunt, and it was the first group of birds that came in. The lead birds were
That's awesome.
a big bull sprig.
So
Where did you get that at?
Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma?
Yeah.
is that bird going to go on the wall in the bus?
Yes.
Or?
I don't know if it'll make it in the bus, but it is in a cooler currently, frozen.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do you have some mounted in the bus?
I have a European mount whitetail in the bus. I don't have any ducks in there yet, but there's not a lot of headroom,
Sure.
So I can't fit a whole lot.
Dead mounts.
But my plan is I shot 2 bull cans a couple years ago on a hunt down Louisiana, and I never killed a bull can.
Yeah.
Because those always came through late.
Wow.
And then that pintail, and I'm thinking about doing a dead mount with all 3 birds.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, guys, I certainly appreciate you taking some time to chat with us, and I had a blast hunting with you guys today, and I'm looking forward to doing it tomorrow. And I guess I'll get you guys out on this. What are you going to order for dinner tonight?
Well, oysters. We're going to have some oysters to start out with.
I'll probably start with the water, but you guys can have oysters.
Or a Sprite, depending on what they pour in your glass.
Fair enough. That's a fair point. Yeah, little mix.
And then I didn't have any crab last night, so I'm going to have to go with something stuffed with crab.
There you go. Yeah.
I was tempted to go with the stuffed flounder like you had last night.
I saw you kept sticking your fork over up towards my plate. It was getting kind of
But
weird.
those blackened scallops are intriguing.
Yeah.
They were delicious.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed to say it. I'll probably go back to the flounder again tonight.
And I think tomorrow night, though, is all-you-can-eat oyster buffet.
Oh, right up my alley. I can't wait to tear that up.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, I appreciate it. Brad, thank you so much. Sam, I appreciate your time, man. Make sure where can guys go and find your stuff to help out with your initiative there in support of public land?
Yeah, so in addition to the bus, my brother and I started Public Land Tees, and so $5 from every shirt sold goes to public land conservation. So it's just publiclandtees.com. And for all of you listening, we do have some duck hunting designs coming out.
Oh, okay.
And I'm hoping to drop the first one in February. So
Awesome.
we delayed it a little bit so we can do a little bit bigger launch.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Well, we've got a lot of guys that hunt big game, out west as well. So definitely guys that'll be interested in your stuff. So
for sure.
Again, guys, I appreciate it and look forward to shooting them up again with you all tomorrow.
Thanks for having us on.
All right. Well, thanks again to Brad and Sam for taking some of their time to sit down with me, and hopefully you guys enjoyed chatting it up with those guys. And I know it was one of really a great experience for me that I'm super excited that we had the opportunity to be a part of, and looking forward to being able to bring even more content from that trip. With some of the folks that are on there and getting them on the show and things like that. So hopefully more to come from that. But again, thank you to Sam and Brad for taking the time to join me on that show.
Yeah, man. I think too, a little shout out to Rock House Motion. You had Matt and Aaron in camp with you. I've got to hang out with Aaron a few times and just some of the great people in the industry, and their work is second to none. So a little shout out to them. I like those boys a lot.
Yeah, Aaron Hitchens is your man crush. That's my opinion.
He is. He's been my man crush for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's I told him that actually when we were out there. I told him, and I said, I'm only saying that because he would say that to your face if he was here. So I didn't feel like I was stepping out of bounds on that one.
No, and it was funny, when I went to pick up Boo for my father-in-law, went down and Aaron was down there. I didn't know that he and his mother were going to be there, and I pull up in a Rock House hat. He's like, "Did you know I was going to be here?" And I was like, "I did not." I said, "I just love this hat and love what you guys are about." So it was kind of a neat intro, but yeah, definitely cool. And I hunted with Sam in Oklahoma, like you said. He has some really cool stuff coming out, public land tees for the waterfowl duck hunters, and something to check out here in the near future. I'm sure that he showed you some of that stuff.
No doubt. Yep, for sure. And I will say, working with Rockhouse Motion was awesome because Aaron and Matt, those guys, there's a reason why that they're at the level they are in the business. I mean, I'm sure if anyone followed us on social media or followed this trip, they saw Aaron in the water in the Chesapeake as we were hunting ducks, and he's in a dry suit and stuff. But it's interesting because you got to be, we're really nervous about having someone in the water, and I mean, sea ducks are not the smartest of birds. I mean, they fly by a lot, without concern for their life, it appears. So I actually shot a duck with Aaron in the water. And while I had to be really mindful of like where I was shooting, it was really cool to be like, that to have them be able to capture that moment from that angle, right? I mean, you just never see that kind of stuff. So very cool. It was awesome to work with them. Great to meet those dudes as well. And
did he have a housing on his camera?
Yeah, so on that particular situation, he did not have a housing on the camera. So he had the 1DX Mark II, with like an L lens. So you're talking, probably close to $7,500, $8,000 worth of, maybe even a little more worth of camera in his hand, just floating around out there, battling the current and the wind and everything. So yeah, whatever it takes, I guess, right?
How about, did he have flippers on?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay, that's just funny.
So cool stuff.
Great.
Cool stuff was
so how did the gun shoot? Didn't even talk about it.
The gun was great. I mean, I'm a Beretta fan. I always have been. I hope that we'll be able to get the lead designer for the gun on the show to not only just talk about the features of the gun, but like I want to go deep dive, because they made a lot of improvements on the gun. And I want to know, and I want our listeners to hear why. So whether you shoot Beretta or you shoot Benelli or you shoot Mossberg or Remington or whatever you shoot, I want them to talk about the features of the gun. And so you can compare that to what you have, or if you're looking to buy something new, you can consider these things, go in deep dive on forcing cones and raised ribs and things like this, that probably a lot of guys don't really know what that is or why it's important. So hopefully that's something that we're going to be able to get lined up here for the show. But the gun shot awesome. We didn't have any issues at all with it. We were shooting a variety of loads from 2 3/4 Boss to 3.5 inch Black Cloud. There was a lot of different ammo being shot from the different folks there. All of it was handled well. The gun's very light recoiling, in my opinion. That's one of the biggest features of it. And it does have that raised rib on it, which I love a gun that has a raised rib or something that gets the sight picture up to my eye because I'm a taller guy. So, the Browning A5 has always been a comfortable gun for me to shoot for that reason. The Benelli Super Black Eagle line has always shouldered really nice for me for similar reasons. So this gun now has that same kind of feel to me, which, as someone who just personally prefers a gas operating gun, that checks one more box for me that that their line of guns didn't in the past. So really welcome changes, in my opinion. Oversized, charging handle, oversized. I don't even know what the proper term is for it, but like the button that closes the action, that brings the slide bolt forward, things like that. All of that oversized, easy to manipulate with gloves on, things like that. So very cool, welcome additions, for my optic.
That's awesome. So what else? You guys, but you did limit both days, right? 6-man limit both days?
We did. Yeah, we shot 5-man limits. both days. The second day we might have been like one duck short. I'm not really sure. Can't remember. We shot a bunch of ducks. That's all I know. You know, and the second day, the outfitter that we were with had 3 boats out there hunting, and there was 2 boats, and we were in like a floating pontoon blind, spread out quite a ways in the Chesapeake Bay, but we could see the other boats. And I kind of felt bad because the other boats were not getting near the shooting opportunities that we did. So once we got close to our limit, we wanted to be able to kind of let the other guys get some shooting as well. So we wrapped it up. We could have definitely stayed and killed like the extra bird or 2 that we needed to fully fill out the limit. But at that point, you know, the point had been proven. We had beat the tar to those guns. I mean, every volley, we were always taking it to the plug every time. I mean, we were doing full send, extended chokes, modified chokes, a little variety of everything just to see kind of how everything worked, and you know, just looking for performance variances and things like that. And you know, I think we shot probably close to 2 cases of shells in 2 days.
Nice.
Yeah. So very fun. It's a lot of fun just burning gunpowder, you know?
Yeah, man. And then, like you said, just quality people out there, and it's fun to cut up and just learn about where they come from and what they're used to, and probably just see their eyes. You know, the sea ducks coming across their brow for the first time is pretty neat.
Well, it's funny because like the first couple times that the sea ducks were working us, you know, we're all kind of in this pontoon blind, and we're concerned about concealment, right? So the birds are coming in, and we're all kind of like ducked down, and you know, like you would normally do. And then we sort of realize, like after a couple of volleys, like they're not super nervous or spooked. So at one point, I looked down the blind, and we're all hunkered down, and Aaron is on the end of the blind, standing straight up, camera up, filming what's happening, and we're all like hunkered down, and birds are just landing feet down in the decoys, you know. So I'm kind of like, what are we doing here? So at that point, we just pretty much just stood up and just shot. So
that's awesome.
It was the only hunt probably that I've been on that I can recall, at least in recent memory, where concealment was not so much of a concern, and it was definitely, your success was more so determined on your marksmanship, because they're tough birds. They're flying at a decent distance at good speed. So, you know, basically the deal was lead them till you're uncomfortably far ahead of them and then go another foot, and you were about right. I mean, we were leading birds like crazy. Like I'm talking like 6 8 foot leads to knock them down.
Like a half a canoe or something, you're saying?
Yeah, Sam was using canoe references on how far he was leading birds. So yeah, I heard him say about half a canoe. So when I started employing that, I mean, it was on like Donkey Kong after that. So I think he nailed it. Yeah. So that was fun. So anyway, I think we're going to drag on here a little bit too long. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up. You got anything else for one more thing before we go?
No, man, I'm pretty good. You know, we're, like you said, you got your boys wanting to go out and play in the snow and all that snow that you guys got. And
yep.
I got all kinds of stuff going on today, so it's all good.
Well, on that note, before we close out this week's episode, I do want to thank again Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. Is the world's most comprehensive online gun dog training resource with over 160 instructional videos, including everything that you need to take a 7-week-old puppy to a finished gun dog. Visit cornerstonegundogacademy.com, sign up for their preview module, and begin your training journey today. Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, the world's most advanced gun dog training resource on the web. And with that, we'll go ahead and put a bow on this week's episode. All right, that's going to do it for episode 117. Excited to have Dan back on the mic with me this week, and do appreciate Brad Heidel and Sam Soholt for joining us on the show. If you're new to the show, head over to iTunes. Make sure you check out all the past episodes. 5-star rating and reviews are certainly appreciated. And make sure you guys are enjoying any of the discount codes that you can find at hpoutdoors.com on the discount page to help you buy any gear that you might be looking for. That's going to do it for this week. So until next week, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.